Hi everybody, Steve Griffiths here, developer of the MTPredictor software program. In today's MTPredictor video, I'd like to look at a trade setup that did not unfold as anticipated. I believe it's important to look at trades that don't unfold as anticipated. I think there's too many gurus and software vendors that only look at idealized, perfect examples. They never show either losing trades or trades that don't work out, and that's what I want to focus on in today's video. But first, let's cover our risk disclaimer and remind you that all examples in these videos should be considered as hypothetical. No trades were taken, they're just shown for illustration and training purposes only. Remind you there's a risk of loss in trading and investing. All professional traders know, understand, and more importantly accept that losses can and will and do unfold. And that's what we'll be looking at in today's video. All trade decisions are your own sole responsibility. Right, let's have a look at the chart. The setup I want to look at was on the NQ, and in particular this TS3 Holy Grail trade setup that unfolded at around 11 o'clock on yesterday, which was the 22nd of June. You can see I have the 15-minute DP resistance there, and the MTP trend was red at the time. But I'll just go to the higher time frame chart just to place this on so you can see what we were looking at the time. The higher time frame chart is a time frame that's between 3 and 5 time frames higher. So if you're on a 3-minute chart, it would be the 15-minute. If you say 15-minute Forex, it would be on the hourly. If you're daily, it would be the weekly. So let's go back before yesterday even opened. So back to there. Let's go back to the last pivot high, which was here. Through right mouse click. Whoops. Do DP. Missed it. Do DP, and you can see there would be our DP resistance, which basically caught the high of the day on the day before, which was the 21st of June. But if now we open, you see the market started to decline. So early in the trading on the 22nd, which was yesterday, we can see that it looked like a high was coming in. Let's now move to the 3-minute chart and see how that looked. Again, let's use our training mode and come back to just after here. So it looked like a high would come in. Let's move forward. Looks like the market was starting to come down. We then had a VS buy setup came in, but you wouldn't consider this because the MTP trend had gone red, and obviously this looked like a potential high, and it looked like the market was then coming down. So most users now will be considering the large degree trend as down and therefore looking for potential sell setups. So let's move forward and see what happened. Oh, there was a potential Holy Grail sell setup here, but if we place the analysis on, that would be our entry point. If I move forward 1 bar, we'd have gone through the stop zone before the entry point, therefore that trade would have not been entered. So that's why that setup was removed, because there was no trade entered before it passed the point at which it was invalidated. Carries up a bit and then suddenly makes another attempt at a Holy Grail sell. We now right mouse click over the red sell bar, do analysis, and you can see that's what the picture looked like at the time. That's why it's very handy in MTPredictor 8 to be able to use our training mode or our playback mode to be able to go through bar by bar and see what the chart looked like at the time. So would this be a good trade to take? Yes, it would. It looked absolutely picture perfect with a lovely 15-minute resistance, initial decline down, initial correction, unfolding as an ABC, red MTP trend. Was a very good trade to consider. Let's move forward. The market would have taken you to a short trade. Basically, it was drifting sideways. Wasn't really going anywhere. So alarm bells should start to be ringing now that this trade was probably not going to work out as anticipated, because ideally you should get some kind of follow through. We had a TS3 buy setup coming there. Obviously, we'd ignore that because the MTP trend was red. But again, alarm bells should be coming in. You know, this is not the kind of activity we really want to see if the market is going to carry on down. Go sideways, not really going anywhere up into a potential VS sell setup, but more importantly is that this particular short trade would now have been stopped out. So this would have been a losing trade. If you'd kept your stop at your initial stop trigger, then this would have been a losing trade. And I thought it's important to show a trade that looked absolutely picture perfect at the time, but the market just did not unfold as anticipated, and this would have been a loss. Perhaps once you saw that TS3 buy setup came in and you were past the 100% initial risk level, more aggressive traders may have brought or I should say more conservative traders would have brought their stop to break even. Perhaps you may well have avoided that, but for the sake of this video, we're going to call this a -1R loss or a losing trade. And as you can see, no matter how good the trade setup looks at the time, losses can and will and do unfold. It's important to show that. But the trick is keeping the loss small. Here, we use correct position sizing to vary the number of lots, contracts or shares. In this case, to keep our initial risk less than 2% of a sample $20,000 account. So that means that you'd have lost what we call one risk unit. If it had got down to the target, the profit would have been plus 7.7 risk units. That's why we like this Holy Grail trade setup, not because it has a high percentage of winners, as we've seen here. Losses can and will and do unfold, but when the losses do come through, the loss would have been small at -1R for a potential 7R profit. So that would have been a losing trade. Let's turn training mode off. The market actually carried on up a bit later in the day, making a high. And if we actually go out to the 15-minute chart and we zoom out a bit, this was the last swing into the low. For you guys who've been following MTPredictor for a while will know that this is a swing we like to look at a lot. So there was a last major low way back there on June the 15th. This was the last swing into the low. If I right mouse click off this pivot, put a DP on, this would be our next DP resistance area, and as you can see, what the market did was carry on up into that level before making a high and then coming down. But obviously that's great in hindsight, but at the time it did look that a high was coming in here. So this shorter term 3-minute chart at this particular point in time here looked like it was a valid sell setup. Because that didn't work out as anticipated, you may not have taken this sell setup here and were waiting until the market got up into this larger degree resistance. Let's have a look at the other E-minis. The other E-minis, well, we had a Holy Grail long trade on a MTP black trend here. So if we'd placed the analysis on this, that would have been a nice 2.4R profit with another TS3 buy setup here. If you were looking for highs to come in, as we've seen already on the 15-minute chart of the NQ, and you've been looking at this VS sell setup, then that came in nailing the high of the day. That was on a grey MTP trend to show that the market was in the process of reversing and a high potentially coming in. That came down to the first target there where the MTP trend was strong. Should have trailed with the ATR stop and held into the close for potential 4R. So the ES actually had a good day yesterday. And on the YM, I think was even better because there was our high coming in earlier in the day. The market then came back up and made a Holy Grail sell setup in and around the time when we were looking for the YM to come off. The first attempt at this would have been another loss, just clipped in. You may have actually been lucky and avoided getting filled on that particular tick there, but if you had, again, that would have been a losing trade. Again, losses can and will do happen, but that would have been, again, a -1R loss. Then the market came up, made another Holy Grail sell setup there. If you'd taken that, you'd have been taken in short, not stopped out, almost, but not, down into the typical wave 3 typical wave 3 WPT target for a nice 4R profit. So that would have actually been a nice trade a bit later in the day. So the YM actually had some good setups. The ES also had some good setups as well, but the main one I wanted to focus on was this NQ, and in particular this Holy Grail sell setup here, which at the time, as we saw earlier in the video, looked to be absolutely perfect, but as we've seen did not work out as anticipated and would have actually produced in a losing trade. So that's the reason I've done this video today, to show that losses can, will and do unfold, and it's important with any trading system to know, or trading approach to know, that losses can and will and do unfold, but the trick is keeping those losses small, so when they do come through, you only risk one risk unit by using position sizing, on the idea that when the profits come through, the profits are large and more than make up for your losing trades. So today's MTPredictor video is all about losing trades, and in particular this Holy Grail or potential Holy Grail sell setup on the NQ, which did produce a 1R loss.